Thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm lucky to be here in this beautiful, hilltop called Manora Peak. And right now I'm sitting in one of the rooms here. So if you have a drone camera, probably you'll be able to see me from this window. So thanks again to the Academy for giving me this opportunity to share some of the things what we do in terms of solar physics. I'm an astrophysicist, but primarily do solar physics from ground and space observations and some modeling efforts. Now I've just been appointed about a year and a half back at Nainital, but my roots are from Bangalore at IIA, and I'm also affiliated to IISER Kolkata at CESI. We are also very fortunate to be able to host our sort of maintain this largest telescope from the country. This is the 3.6 meter Devasthal optical telescope. Devasthal is situated about 60 kilometers from Manora Peak. So it's again another beautiful site. So I hope in future we can even have one of the meetings of Academy in one of these locations. So what I thought today I will do is I will try to give a overview more in a phenomenological way, that what kind of things what we do, and this is the modern way of doing astronomy also in general. So the key word is actually multi-wavelength, because if we just see any astronomical object, and for example the sun, we see that from the white light from the ground-based telescope, the sun doesn't look so exciting. Of course, there is still some excitement. Galileo observed it 400 years back and discovered many interesting things. But now what we need is a multi-wavelength observation of the sun to see different layers of the sun. So when we see in infrared telescope, this is also possible to see from mountainside. Even in Himalayan side, actually, we could set up some infrared observatory. And of course, after the space era, when we see the sun, primarily the outer layers of the sun, this is the corona, which is called the good one. Even from the X-ray telescope, so means shorter and shorter wavelength you go, you are able to see the higher layers of the atmosphere of the sun, which are also incidentally very hot, which is again a physics question to be answered. So what we do is when we look at the sun, we do find different kinds of variability. There are variability in terms of seconds to minutes. There are variability over the years, and there is a famous sunspot solar cycle. I will be talking about it very briefly. Here there is an image again of the corona of the sun from a NASA satellite called Solar Dynamic Observatory. You see there are certain regions on the sun which are very bright, and there are certain regions which are more dark, and these are called quiet regions, and these are called active regions. So now we understand that active regions are primary regions where there are presence of strong magnetic field. And now we understand that the dynamics or the variability in the sun is primarily governed by the presence of the field and its variability also. So that provides us an ideal laboratory for studying plasma physics in the presence of strong magnetic field. And as you know, in plasma physics also there are different approximations one can assume, magnetohydrodynamic scenarios, and also kinetic theories and so on at different parts of the sun and in its atmosphere. The other thing which I wanted to also emphasize on this audience is sun itself is our nearest star, but it provides an ideal laboratory to study atomic physics, or whether you call it particle physics, the same as solar neutrino problem solved particle physics issues, nuclear physics, because all the energy is generated right in the core through the pp chain reaction. And then of course you have the molecular and atomic spectroscopy, which is the key for diagnosing the plasma properties, because we see everything almost remotely from here. So there are various branches of physics actually which can be applied to the sun. So as I indicated, the multi-wavelength aspect, and if I look at a part of the sun, so this is again a region taken from the optical region. You see that these are dark spots on the sun, which we know now are highly concentrated magnetic field region. And if you go, say, a few thousand kilometers above the surface, the visible surface, what you see in the sky, namely, this is called the chromosphere, and these are taken again with different EUV filter images, probing different plasma temperatures. And there you see that there are many different structures where it appears that the plasma is very much confined because of the presence of the magnetic field and its topology. So it's an ideal place again to study the magnetic topology and that kind of branch. Now I showed the example of that explosion which was happening, ejection of this confined plasma. So now I'm just showing you a animation collecting data from different platforms. So this is a age of the sun taken from an EUV image from the satellite again. But normally we can't see the outer atmosphere of the sun, the corona. Normally, you know that during the total solar eclipse only it is possible to be seen. The other alternative is to build a instrument called a coronagraph, which artificially blocks the solar disk, and then you can see the outer atmosphere of the sun. So here what I am showing is a series of coronographic images, and as you go from several 30-40 solar radii away from the sun, these are called the heliosphere, and there are two different heliospheric images which are again recording this plasma blob, the magnetic cloud we call it, as it travels from the sun-Earth distance. Here is Earth has its own magnetic field, so it protects us. But of course, there are many satellites and other assets in the space now. So if such an ejector comes from the sun, and if it travels all the way through this media and interacts with these satellites and other assets, we need to study actually what are the impacts. So that's the context of the solar impact, what I mentioned, in a shorter time scale. But also sun, as I said, this magnetic field in the form of the sunspot, what we see that number also varies with the years. And whether there is any effect of those variations of the overall magnetic output of the sun on our climate is another aspect of impact on our long-term variability. I showed you some examples of active region where there are strong magnetic field. Now, since we are having now bigger and bigger telescope, we are now able to see the so-called quiet sun, which were called earlier because of the lack of resolution of these images. Now we see lots of dynamics in this. So this is actually a classical example of a quiet sun observation, and this is done by a combination of telescope. These three layers been observed from a ground-based facility from a Big Bear Solar Observatory, and this layer, which is the outermost layer, is about 2,000 kilometers and above, is taken from a NASA satellite. So now I see that these lowest panel shows you the evolution of the concentration of the magnetic field, a very, very small spatial scale. For example, the sunspots are of the size of several thousand kilometers, whereas we are talking about 100 kilometers or less. So these are called small flux tubes as compared to the sunspots, which are bigger flux tubes. And you see that these small flux tube concentrations are also very dynamic. And there are also, of course, sunspots, the magnetic field is always bipolar, and you see two different polarities are indicated by two different colors in this lowest panel here. So what we study is the effect of these interaction of these opposite magnetic field, and there is a process called magnetic reconnection, which annihilates the magnetic field, and as a result of that, you get this kind of jets, and these jets carry energy to the upper layers, and that explains the high temperature of the corona as well. So this is, these are possible only with the advent of much better telescope and of course a lot of instrumentation. And as you can see, this is a result which is published in Science a year and a half back after my student finished his thesis and went to US, and we have a large collaboration here. So I showed you the smaller time scales of variability of the order of seconds, minutes to hours. And now here I show you a variability in terms of the years. What is showing here is a collage of solar eclipse images. So these eclipse images are taken again from two different filters. I've just highlighted these two filters because we have a solar mission now coming up, and in that mission we have these two filter spectroscopy capability also from Indian platform. But so far these informations are only available through eclipse observations, and as you know, eclipses are very rare. And so these are 2006 eclipse image, taken with two different color filter, which represents two different plasma. So often you see that the two different plasma do not always coincide or are coincident in the same place. Their time evolutions also could be different. So 2006, these composite picture was very different to 2008. And then 2009, there is also quite a bit of difference. And in 2010, again, you see a very different, very dynamic corona as well. So it is important to study this variability in the long time scales as well, because depending on these magnetic structures, basically, if the ejecta comes from the sun, they will interact with this magnetic field. So the trajectory of these ejecta, their propagation properties is crucially dependent on understanding of our knowledge about this background magnetic field as well. And as I was indicating, these fields are generated right inside the sun. There, the conditions of the plasma is very different. There is a very highly dense regions, whereas when we go to the corona, there the interparticle distance is very, very large. So here, if you are a domain in the plasma physics, you actually need kinetic descriptions, whereas close to the sun, you need imaging descriptions. The different branches of physics is applied. And again, as I indicated from the coronal images, what you could see that we still do not have a direct observations of the magnetic field in the corona. So what is only possible is magnetic field modeling. So this is an effort from IISER Kolkata, and one of my colleagues, Dipendu Nondi, does all these numerical work. And in fact, he did some prediction of the solar total eclipse image of the corona just before the eclipse happened. And it appeared that the match is pretty good. So the point is that the magnetic structure on a large scale need to be understood from magnetic modeling, but there again, a large amount of computation is involved, and how you describe the magnetic field and evolution, it's all that is quite crucial. So last few minutes, I would like to say also very briefly about this mission, which is coming up from our own platform. This is an indigenous mission from India. There are several institutes all across the country, and ISRO centers are directly involved in this. There are 7 payloads, combination of 4 remote sensing instruments. That means, we are going to look at the sun from a distance. And actually, the distance is we are going towards the Lagrangian 1 point. This is also a very, very challenging mission because, nobody has, apart from NASA and ESA, nobody has gone up to the Lagrangian 1 point. It's along 127,000 kilometers away from us. And we are going to look at the sun with these 4 remote sensing instruments with the capabilities of imaging, in optical, in X-rays, in near UV, and so on. So it has spectral capabilities, and it also has in situ measurements. That means, if some ejecta or some particles are coming from the sun, it has to, before it reaches the Earth, it has to go through the satellite, and the in situ instrument, which will detect the charges and their charge to mass ratio or their magnetic properties through the magnetometer. So it's a really, really, a suite of instrument. It's a real huge opportunity of having an observatory in space, and that is coming up in next year. So I just last few minutes, I will talk about these again, our favorite objects called the sunspot. The sunspots are generated now, it is believed, by a dynamo process at the base of the convection zone. Underneath the sun, we have a convection zone about 30%, and these are in the form of a flux tubes, as you have indicated, and you see it here as these white lines, and they come up always in bipolar mode. And then sometimes, because of the instabilities and because of the twist and so on, these flux tubes are twisted and then they get ruptured, and this material comes out as a coronal mass ejection, the ejecta, what I was talking about. Very briefly, I also want to touch on this long-term study of the sunspot. So what is shown here is the sunspot number plotted against last 400 years. So you see there is alternate peaks in the solar activity. These are called maxima, followed by a quiet period where minima. There are hardly any sunspots recorded. And this time variation is predominantly cyclic, mean period about 11 years. But there are certain times, you see the certain cycles are very weak as compared to the other cycles. And obviously, when there are more number of sunspots, there are more activity, more ejecta. And, we have to worry about all these, interactions with the satellite and other assets. There is also another interesting aspect which happened way back between 1650 to 1700, there were hardly any sunspots recorded. What was the effect of this? The Volga River was frozen for 40 years, and there were several thousands of people died in Europe. So there is a direct impact of not having sunspots on the sun. Means, sun has not been that much magnetically active. So I thought, I will just, again, these are our indigenous, our resources. From Kodaikanal, we have been looking at the sun for last 100 years. And again, from the multi-wavelength, we had observations from white light, where you see the sunspots. We have observations from calcium K, which records the chromospheric height, about, say, 1,200 kilometers from the surface. And then you have H alpha again there. So we have a huge, sources there. I will probably skip a little bit because I'm running probably short of time. But I wanted to emphasize again that this is a archive which we have generated at Indian Institute of Astrophysics in Kodaikanal, and this 100 years of data of 30-40 terabytes of data is available to the global community, and it's really getting lots of interesting results. This is a very new result which has been again published by one of my former students who is in Max Planck Institute. So we are looking at the data not only from Kodaikanal across the globe. We are cross-calibrating this, and we are generating this solar cycle. There are other properties of the sunspots, which is indicated by the lower panel. I will not have time to describe that. So, because my beep is also downing, so that's my last slide. I think the future of solar physics in India is very, very bright. We just had a school, last year at our place in Himalayas. In the school, and this is my bunch of students who does all these different kinds of work. Some are in theoretical, some are in experimental, some are building instruments for ISRO. This is again, I enjoy my my subject. I was lucky to go to a solar eclipse in Argentina 1.5 years back. These are taken pictures from our own camera. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Banerjee, for a very interesting talk and overview of many activities. Are there any questions? So audience should write in the chat box or in the Q&A on the right-hand side of your window or on YouTube. So there are a few questions for you. One is the quiet sun is violent, quite violent. Why?
Okay, so what it appears is it is the magnetic field which is responsible for all these violence. Means these dynamics, what we see, the cancellation of the magnetic fields and so on. It just the scale of those magnetic field makes it important that how much energetic they will be. So in the past, since we were not able to have those kind of detection abilities in terms of resolutions and energy, whatever we can measure now today with bigger telescopes and bigger instruments, they were framed as quiet, but nothing is actually quiet in the sun. Absolutely nothing is quiet. So it's a misnomer actually today's world.
I see. There's a question now from Professor Kalidas Sen, and I had a similar question too. What is the order of the maximum magnetic field observed at the surface of the sun?
Very good. So they are in the sunspots, we see the maximum strength in kilogausses. So about 4,000 to 5,000 kilogauss maximum field strength has been observed. Again, sometimes there are limitations in those spectral observations also, because we use Zeeman splitting to see the splitting and then measure the strength of the field. Also, there is a spectropolarimetric observation to the Stokes profile. We get an estimate about the field. But to answer it, that's a maximum field on the surface of the sun. But it is understood that in the base of the convection zone, probably they're much stronger, probably megagauss.
I see. Thank you. Since we do have a few minutes, there is a more sort of generic question, Professor Banerjee. Can you briefly explain about the L1 Aditya mission?
Okay.
The sun?
Right. So, majority of the satellites, they are actually orbiting the Earth in either in geosynchronous orbit or in the polar orbit. So, so they're typically, 500, 600 kilometers is the polar orbit. Geosynchronous is slightly above. But Lagrangian one is a position, basically for a three-body system, there are 5 Lagrangian points, which are stable configurations we consider. So Lagrangian one point is a place where typically we can imagine the force between the satellite and the sun balances the force between the satellite and the Earth. So once you are able to reach a Lagrangian one point and making a sort of orbit around it, it's much easier to stay there for very, very long period of time. So to reach there, a lot of fuel will be necessary. But once you are there, you can sustain as a space observatory for very long period of time. Incidentally, the SOHO mission, which was from ESA and NASA, they were launched in 1995. They're still there. So it's more than the 2 solar cycles, we call it in that time scale. It's been able to observe. Whereas in a small satellite orbit, will have a 5-year or 6-year mission. So that's also another big advantage of a L1 mission.
It takes us very nicely to a question by Professor Bhaskaran. He's asking, is there a prediction of absence of solar cycle in the near future, like the one that happened 50 years ago?
No, thankfully, no. Probably, if there are no sunspot, there won't be on CMEs, there won't be, all these dynamic things which we are seeing. Having said that, actually, the last minima was a little extended. We had almost 2 years where there were no sunspots. And people were actually worried what is going to happen. I mean, are we going into a, Maunder minima, which happened, in the 1600s, that kind of scenario. But thankfully, the sunspots came up. And most of the models were actually a little puzzled why there was such a little delay in this. But now we have answers to that, because there are certain parameters of the dynamo model which dictates the periodicity and exactly the strength and so on as well. So all the theoretical models what we have for prediction models, of course, there is a huge discrepancies in the different prediction models, but nobody says that we will not have a sunspot in near future.
I see. There's one last question which will take us to the next talk in a natural way. The question is, do the solar cycles correspond to terrestrial phenomena like El Nino or La Nina type of phenomena?
Yeah. So this is something which is being a major impact that this is in the form of a space climate. In a long term, whether there is a effect of the solar radiation. Of course, solar radiation is the main driver for our climate. But it appears that, it's not the sun to be blamed, it's us to be blamed more for whatever changes, bigger changes, what we are seeing in our, terrestrial environment. So to answer, I think sun should not be blamed for, so far in last 100 years of cycles, there are small variations, but that 0.01% variation of the total radiation coming of the sun do not explain the more temperature changes what we are seeing locally here. So it has to be more local in nature.
Thank you very much. I request all the audience to join me in thanking Professor Banerjee once again. Thank you.